Hey, Dad, can I have a Sega Genesis?
No.
Mom.
No.
Dad.
No.
But,
No.
please?
Well, we'll see.
Video game collecting can get pretty darn expensive. With some game prices reaching well into the thousands of dollars range, going for a complete set of a console's library can become quite a costly venture. While I don't currently have any goal of completing any particular retro console's library, I am always curious about those holy grails that have those high, jaw-dropping values sitting at the top of price charting. Are any of these high-ticket games worth playing? Let's find out as we take a look at the top 10 most expensive games for the Sega Genesis. I think you kind of have to, when you say Sega Genesis, you gotta do something, you gotta put some oomph in it, I've noticed. When you're making these videos, you need to, Sega Genesis, for the Sega Genesis, something like that. The games in this video are limited to those that were released during the console's original lifespan, games that were meant for mass commercial consumption, no World Championship carts, and no cartridge variants. Let's do it. Number 10! Grindstormer was published by Tengen in 1994. It is a port of the Toaplan arcade game from the previous year, and it is a vertical scrolling shooter. Let's go ahead and get this out of the way, since there are a few shooters on this list. I am just not very good at shooters. My brain, eyes, and hands cannot communicate quickly enough to excel at these games, which really bums me out because I do enjoy playing them. Grindstormer is a pretty tough game that will require many repeated attempts in order to learn the stages and conquer them. There are 3 different weapons in the game that can be powered up, with my favorite being the search weapon that sends out side pods and attaches to enemies until they die. There is also a screen-clearing bomb at your disposal. I had never heard of this one before researching for this video, and I must say that this is a game that I am glad to have discovered. Even though it's pretty freaking hard, I am compelled to keep trying. There are also difficulty settings and a training mode that allows you to practice levels, which is a feature that I wish I saw in more shooters. It's nice to be coddled sometimes when you're a shooter-challenged individual like myself. One of the coolest aspects of this game is the fact that it includes an entire second game! Also included on the cart is V5, which is the Japanese version of the game that features a more Gradius-style upgrade system. I found this version of the game to be even more difficult than Grindstormer, mainly due to the lack of the screen-clearing bombs in this version. I really miss those screen-clearing bombs. While certainly not the greatest shooter for the Genesis, Grindstormer is a pretty good time, especially for those that are fans of Toaplan shooters. Part of the reason that this cart goes for such high prices is that there were a large number of faulty cartridges produced during its print run. While I am not sure that I would pay upwards of $100 for a loose copy of this game, I definitely recommend that fans of vertical shooters on the Sega Genesis check this one out at least once. Number 9. Troubleshooter was published by Vic Tokai in 1991. In Troubleshooter, you take control of Madison and her friend Crystal as they embark on a mission to save Prince Eldon from the clutches of the dastardly Black Ball. When first loading up the game, I was immediately struck by the anime art style and thunderous fast drums of the soundtrack. This game made a very positive first impression, and I wasn't disappointed when I began playing. This is a very enjoyable and endearing shooter. Check out this cover! How much more 90s can you get? They don't design them like that anymore. The cutscenes gave me a few chuckles. I love that there is this very woman-empowering one-liner about a woman being the best man for the job, only then for the same character Madison to express excitement at needing to go to the shopping center for a mission because there is the possibility of a shoe sale. How much more 90s can you get? They don't write them like that anymore. During gameplay, you control both Crystal and Madison with the ability to change the direction of Crystal shots. Before you begin a stage, you can select between 4 different special weapons. The special weapons in this game are handled in an interesting manner with a gauge that slowly fills up, allowing you to utilize the special when it fills. You can also find pickups to increase your firepower and speed, as well as health pickups. Troubleshooter is a great game with an excellent presentation and a pretty rockin' soundtrack that kept me engaged for quite some time. While I don't know that I would commit to spending more than $100 on a loose copy of this, it is one that I would love to have in my collection if I ever find it for a good price. I will definitely play this one many times in the future. Number 8. The Punisher was published by Capcom in 1994. It is a beat-em-up where you play as either Frank Castle or Nick Fury, murdering anyone who so much as looks your way on a mission to take down Kingpin. I am not terribly familiar with the source material, which is something that I really need to change in the near future, as I have heard positive things about the Punisher IP. I'm a pretty big fan of beat-em-ups from this era, and I had a pretty good time with this one. While I do wish there was a bit more variety in the action and enemies, I had a really good time. The arcade game that this is based on was released in 1993, and from what I've read is very highly regarded and considered as one of the best video game adaptations of a comic book. The opinion of this port, however, seems to be much lower and mixed, but I really enjoyed it. It definitely has a very comic book-esque presentation and was enjoyable enough for me to want to keep playing. While I am not sure if I would ever pay the steep $100 plus price tag for a loose copy, this is another one that I would really love to have up on my shelf. If you enjoy Capcom beat-em-ups of the era, or if you are a fan of the Punisher comic books, check this one out. Number 7. Sparkster was published by Konami in 1994. It is a side-scrolling platform game that finds you taking control of Sparkster, a jetpack-wearing possum armed with a sword and a heart of gold. Sparkster is a sequel to the game Rocket Knight Adventures, which I have not played, but I hear many great things about. It is also a different game than the Sparkster that was released for the Super Nintendo. I fell in love with this game pretty quickly. There are just not enough possums in video games. I mean, look at these things. How no one ever thought to give them weapons and jetpacks before Rocket Knight Adventures is beyond me. Look how cute they are. In Sparkster, you have a regular melee attack and a rocket and screw attack. When you collide with obstacles, Sparkster will rebound, flying all over the place like a little furry pinball. I am now definitely compelled to go back and play the first game and the Super NES game because I was thoroughly impressed with this one. Another reminder of how great a company Konami was during that era. We really miss that Konami. I would be really tempted to pay the $115 for a loose card of Sparkster, but I'll be content for now firing it up in emulation for sure. Absolutely check this one out. Number 6! Aero the Acrobat 2 was published by Sunsoft in 1994. It is yet another sequel to a game that I have never played, and a relic from the glory days of random animals being shoved into platform games with hopes of launching a successful mascot character for various companies. I am not sure how popular Aero actually became, but I do remember seeing the commercials when I was a young lad, and there was enough interest in the first game to warrant a sequel and a spin-off that we will talk about in a little bit. The story here takes place right after the events of the first game. After having defeated Edgar Ector and knocking him off a tower, Arrow goes to explore Edgar's Museum of Horrors. Edgar's henchman, Zero the kamikaze squirrel, swoops in to save him at the last minute, and Arrow gets transported to an ancient castle. While this is my first time playing a game in the Arrowverse, I had not heard very positive things about these games in the past, and therefore was not the most excited to play this one. Now don't get me wrong, this game is not anything incredibly groundbreaking or spectacular, but I actually think it's pretty alright. I thought the control felt pretty good and the music, while probably not things I'll find myself listening to outside of the gameplay, fit the game pretty well. There are a lot of secrets to discover, which I always enjoy, and the levels have some interesting design choices. The biggest flaw with this game is a lack of originality. There just isn't a lot making it stand above the pack. That being said, while I don't think that the game is worth $120 loose, I think it's a pretty good game that might warrant a play from anyone who enjoys 16-bit platformers. Number 5. Elemental Master was published by Renovation Products in 1993. It is a vertically scrolling shooter where you take control of Layden, who must defeat the evil Gyra, who, it turns out, is also his brother. Dun, dun, dun. What a twist! First things first, the opening track to this game might be the most hype intro to a game that I have ever experienced, at least as far as the music is concerned. It immediately got me pumped and ready for action. The music in general is pretty phenomenal. Besides the initial impression made by the music, I was pretty stoked that this shooter has you play as a character moving on the ground instead of flying. It really made the game feel different. There are 3 buttons: shoot forward, shoot behind you, and switch your elemental weapon, of which there are 5. If you hold and shoot for a few seconds, a gauge will fill up and allow you to release an ultimate elemental weapon, which is very useful. This is another instance of a shooter game that I wish I was better at. But again, there is something obstructing communication between my brain, eyes, and hands. But even with my natural handicap with the genre, I had a blast with Elemental Master. Even when I got extremely frustrated, I was still compelled to try again, in great part because of that frickin' amazing soundtrack. I probably wouldn't be able to justify paying $140 for Elemental Master loose, but gosh darn it, I kind of want to try. There are better shooters on the system for sure, probably even in this list, but it is a smashing good time for what it is. Check this one out, if only to rock out to some killer tunes. Number 4. Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel was published by Sunsoft in 1994. Spun off from Arrow the Acrobat, you take control of Arrow's rival Zero as he embarks on his own adventure to save his home and girlfriend from the evil lumberjack, Jacques Lacheats. Alright, I like bats. I do. But I definitely find a squirrel protagonist to be more appealing this time around. He just looks more personable than Arrow. He looks like somebody I would, grab a burrito with. Although I have heard rumors. And after seeing this, I'm afraid a meth habit might be involved here. I enjoyed my time with Zero the Kamikaze Squirrel, more so than my time with Arrow the Acrobat 2. I had some trouble getting a grip on his swoop move and just navigating in general sometimes, but I did have fun while playing. Like Arrow 2, this platforming game isn't anything terribly groundbreaking or fresh, but it has a lot of charm and character. It's a shame that this costs $200 for a loose cartridge, because I think this game is worth playing. If you haven't had enough random animal mascot platformers, make sure to give this one a try. Number three. Musha was published by Seismic in 1991. It is a vertically scrolling shooter that is an entry in Compile's Aless series. The gameplay revolves around controlling Terry, a member of the Musha team, who must use her mech suit in order to defeat the Dire 51 supercomputer and save the Earth. And then, of course, there's this stupid Greg. I had played Musha years ago through emulation, and more recently on the Nintendo Switch Online service after hearing about it for years from Mark at Classic Game Room. This is a pretty good shooter for the Sega Genesis. My shooter disability, of course, rears its ugly head again, but the awesome, sometimes demonic graphics, and outstanding, always demonic music keeps me coming back to this one. The music here is done by Toshiaki Sakota, and it is a speed metal masterpiece. Even if you never check out this game, which you should, but even if you don't, make sure to give this soundtrack a listen. I know that the Genesis gets a lot of crap for the sound quality of some of its games, but when in the right hands, the system is capable of creating some of the greatest game music known to man. I would put this game in the upper tiers of Genesis shooters, and I am very glad that there are currently more accessible ways to be able to play it. $300 is a bit steep for a loose cart, but if you subscribe to the Switch Online expansion pack, fire this one up, maybe even with some headphones, and have a blast. Crusader of Senti is an action-adventure game that was published by Atlas in 1995. It is a Zelda-like where you take control of a boy named Aggie. Imagine that. That's a weird coincidence. That just turned 14, which is the age in this society that forces young boys to don a weapon and train for battle. This is one of those games that I don't remember ever hearing anything about, or ever even seeing. Crusader of Senti was $70 at release and did not sell well, which is a shame. It's a very worthy Zelda clone, and while the story isn't really anything to write home about, it has a lot of personality and, in my opinion, stands out on its own with some interesting mechanics. The graphics are very nice and the music fits the gameplay very well. It may not dethrone Link to the Past in greatness, but it is a fun and rewarding experience in its own right. I haven't made it through this one yet, but I am going to make that a goal in the near future. I almost certainly would not pay $550 for this one, but luckily, Crusader of Senti is also available with the Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack. Give this one a go. Number one. Yay! Outback Joey was published by Heartbeat Corporation in 1993. This platform game was the pack-in for the Heartbeat Catalyst, a Genesis peripheral that had sensors for reading your heart rate, motion, and skin salinity levels for in-game feedback. The Heartbeat Catalyst was often sold alongside the Personal Trainer, a Sega Genesis variation that really has no functional difference from the normal systems, but that just featured a different design. The Heartbeat Catalyst did not require a personal trainer and could be used with a standard system. The game centers around Joey, a kangaroo on a mission to ruthlessly slaughter a group of poachers that have taken members of his family. I have not actually played this one. Thank you to Mooware for the footage. I understand that this can be emulated, and I will look into that as I would like to do a deeper dive on this in the future. It is my understanding that it is just a pretty standard platformer, and that is certainly how it appears, but I would like to give it a proper go one day. I doubt I will ever see any of the things mentioned in this section in real life, but it would be super awesome to actually try this one with an actual heartbeat catalyst like intended. This game alone without the peripheral goes for about $5,000. Robbie Ravioli, that is a lot of money for a game that you probably can't even properly play without probably spending even more to get the required additional hardware. Outback Joey is absolutely an interesting bit of gaming history that will remain a holy grail for obsessed collectors for years to come. And there we go, the top 10 most expensive games on the Sega Genesis. What do you think? I will say that I'm pretty impressed overall with the quality of the games in this list. There was a surprising lack of adult-themed unlicensed games, which was awesome. Definitely go check out my top 10 most expensive NES games to see more what I'm talking about. I am really glad that a couple of these were released on the Nintendo Switch Online service. I think that's awesome, that's great. I hope companies continue to give us current ways to play these older, rare, and expensive games. Let me know if you've played any of these, if you are lucky enough to own any of these, and which ones of these would you be willing to pay top dollar for. And with that, I want to thank everyone for watching. Make sure you go check out the other videos in this series. Let me know what consoles you'd like to see me cover in the future. I hope everyone has a beautiful day. I will see you next time. Bye.